The hallway was silent, dust drifting in golden beams of late sunlight. Then came the sound, sharp claws dragging across old wood. Juno, the rescued bobcat, stood before the tall hallway mirror, her tufted ears pinned back, amber eyes blazing with something primal. She pawed again, claws screeching like nails across glass, growling low in her throat. Henry Wallace froze, watching her reflection ripple strangely. It wasn't the playful scratch of a restless animal. This was intent, urgent. He called for Kate, his voice tight. When she arrived, she dismissed it, saying the bobcat must be reacting to her reflection. But Henry saw it. Juno wasn't striking at herself. She was pawing at something beyond the mirror. That night, as the family slept, Juno returned, sitting motionless in front of the glass, her muscles taut, her breath slow. She knew something was there, waiting to be uncovered. The next afternoon, Henry lingered near the hallway, keeping watch. Juno was already there, crouched, tail flicking, her paw rising to tap the frame with eerie precision. He leaned in, skeptical at first, until a shiver ran down his spine. For a split second, he thought he saw something inside the mirror. A flicker, a shadow crossing behind his own reflection. His throat went dry. "Kate," he called, but when she came, the mirror was still. She scolded him gently, insisting grief was clouding his thoughts since his father's passing. But Henry's growl echoed again, low and guttural, vibrating the air like a warning. Kate turned away, unconvinced, but Henry couldn't shake what he'd seen. He touched the glass, cold as ice, and whispered to himself, "There's something behind here." Juno's ears swiveled as if in agreement. The mirror wasn't just decoration, it was a door to something hidden.
Days passed, and the bobcat's behavior only grew more intense. Juno would spend hours planted in front of the mirror, her body stiff, her gaze locked like a sentry on guard. She didn't scratch wildly, no. Every strike of her paw was controlled, deliberate, as though testing for weakness. Henry observed her closely, torn between fear and fascination. Even at night, the sound of claws against glass echoed through the house, unsettling, impossible to ignore. Kate began losing sleep, her patience wearing thin. "She's wild," she muttered. "You can't expect her to act tame forever." But deep down, even Kate could feel it. Juno wasn't acting wild. She was trying to tell them something. Then, one evening when thunder rolled and the lights flickered, Henry swore the mirror pulsed faintly, as if breathing. Juno froze, hackles raised, eyes locked on something Henry wished he couldn't see. Kate sighed as she watched Henry kneel beside the bobcat, stroking her fur for reassurance. "It's just her instincts," Kate said softly, her apron still dusted with flour from baking. "She sees something, smells something, maybe rodents in the wall." Henry shook his head. "No, she knows better. Look at her, Kate. She's not confused." Juno's growl deepened, vibrating through Henry's palm. Kate turned her face away, unwilling to admit the unease creeping into her chest. They had taken Juno in after finding her injured near the woods, never imagining the wild creature would become their guardian. Yet here she was, insistent, almost desperate, pressing against the mirror like a sentinel. Kate muttered, "Maybe we should just take it down." Henry's eyes snapped toward her, relief and fear mingling in his gaze. For the first time, she had acknowledged what they both secretly felt.
That night, the house was heavy with silence. Rain tapped against the windows, and the air smelled of wet earth. Henry woke suddenly, heart racing, hearing the faint scratch of claws. He crept to the hallway. Juno sat rigid before the mirror, her fur bristled, eyes blazing. And then he heard it, so soft he thought it must be his imagination. A whisper, Not words exactly, but a hush of sound that didn't belong to the storm outside. Henry's skin prickled. He stepped back, but Juno surged forward, pawing harder, her body tense. The glass seemed to ripple like water under her strikes. "Kate!" Henry called out, his voice trembling. By the time she arrived, the whispers had faded, the mirror still once more. But Juno remained fixed, her body quaking with a predator's focus. Something was hidden inside that wall, and it wanted out. The next morning, Kate made a choice. She fetched the toolbox from the shed, her expression grim. "Fine," she said, "we'll take it down. Maybe then she'll stop." Henry stood beside her, tools in hand, while Juno circled eagerly, her tail twitching like she knew victory was close. The screws turned easily, too easily, as though the mirror had been meant to come off. With a final creak, the wooden frame lifted free, revealing not plaster, but a strange panel of aged boards behind it. Kate froze. "That's not part of the house," she whispered. Juno pressed her nose to the wood, huffing, claws digging. Henry glanced at his wife, heart pounding. Someone hid this. The bobcat hissed low, striking the panel with a heavy paw. It gave a faint, hollow echo. The house had been keeping secrets, and Juno had just found them.
Henry knelt close, pressing his ear against the old wood. It sounded hollow, shallow space beyond. "There's something behind it," he murmured. Kate's hands trembled as she traced the edges, her fingers brushing over faint, almost invisible nails hammered in decades ago. The bobcat clawed insistently at one corner, her growls vibrating through the hallway. Henry fetched a hammer, pried the first nail loose. The panel groaned, dust puffing into the air. The sound was like a sigh, as though the house itself had been holding its breath. Finally, with a wrenching pull, the panel came free, and they all stared into the cavity beyond. Not empty, not forgotten. Inside sat a heavy, dust-coated iron safe, its surface etched with time and secrecy. Juno hissed, pacing back and forth, her wild eyes glowing in the dim light. Kate whispered, "What in God's name is this?" Henry couldn't sit still. He called their neighbor, Howard Howie Preston, an old man with sharp eyes and a memory full of stories. When Howie saw the safe, his weathered face paled. "I heard whispers," he admitted, "back when my daddy worked these fields. Folks said there was wealth tucked away, hidden during the old days. But," his voice dropped, "they said it was guarded." Kate scoffed nervously, but Henry leaned in. "Guarded? By what?" Howie shook his head. "Some said a curse, others said a protector, maybe both." Juno padded around the safe, her nose twitching, tail swaying low. She growled at a small slot near the safe's hinge, the sound sharp and unsettled. "That animal knows," Howie muttered. "She can sense what we can't." The safe was real, the treasure inside likely, but so was the warning etched into its legend. As Henry brushed dust from the cavity, his fingers grazed a brittle envelope wedged between the safe and the wall. He tugged it free, the paper cracking with age. Inside were faded letters scrawled in ink almost gone. Kate read aloud, her voice unsteady. "To whoever finds this, know that within lies great fortune, but fortune comes with peril. Wealth sealed, yet guarded by more than steel. Only blood and bravery shall claim it." A chill filled the air. Henry gripped the paper tighter, his eyes flicking to the safe. "Gold, cash, it's in there," he said, excitement mixing with dread. Kate's voice trembled. "Guarded, what does that mean?" Juno growled low, ears pressed back, eyes fixed on the safe, as though she knew the answer. The air around them felt heavier. The letters had spoken clearly. Treasure waited, but danger lay coiled within. Kate tried to set the envelope aside, but Henry's sharp eyes caught something else. The cavity's floorboards looked uneven. With trembling hands, he pried one loose.
Beneath it lay a half-burnt scrap of parchment. It wasn't random scribbles, it was a map. Faded ink showed their house, marked with an X, at the very wall where they stood. Beneath the drawing, faint numbers were etched, coordinates, maybe a code. Henry's heart hammered. "This is it," he whispered. "The way in." Juno suddenly swiped at the safe, claws scraping metal with a ringing clang. She backed up, ears flat, snarling deep in her throat. Her body language was clear. Danger lurked inside. Kate swallowed hard, staring at the safe. "If we open this," she murmured, "we may unleash more than treasure." Henry's eyes glistened. "Or everything we've ever needed." The bobcat's growl answered with finality. "Both."
Henry scoured the cavity around the safe, running his hands along every inch of dust-caked wood. Then his fingers struck something cold. He tugged free a small rusted tin, its lid welded shut by time. With a grunt, he pried it open. Inside lay a heavy brass key, its teeth sharp and strange. Kate gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The key bore an engraving, a serpent coiled around a crown. Juno crouched low, her tufted ears twitching, eyes locked on the key as though it hissed at her. "It belongs to this safe," Henry whispered, knuckles white. Howie muttered, "Be careful, old symbols like that never come alone." The room thickened with silence. Juno let out a guttural growl, her fur bristling. She knew something dangerous was tied to that key. Henry held it tighter anyway, unaware that unlocking fortune meant awakening something alive. The key glinted in the dim light, its serpent engraving catching Henry's gaze. But before he could lift it toward the lock, Juno leapt forward with startling speed. She slapped the key from his hand, claws clicking against metal. A sharp hiss escaped her throat, more primal than ever. Kate gasped. "Henry, she's warning us!" Juno paced in front of the safe, body crouched low like a predator about to strike. Her amber eyes never left the small slit near the hinge. Henry bent to retrieve the key, but Juno blocked him, tail lashing, growl steady. Howie's face turned pale. She senses something. Animals know what waits in dark places. Kate swallowed hard, suddenly cold despite the room's warmth. The safe loomed like a beast with secrets. Juno's stance said it all. The treasure wasn't unguarded. Something was alive within, waiting for the careless hand.
Later that night, when the house was quiet, Henry crept back to the hallway with a lantern. Juno followed, silent as shadow. Determined, he slid the key toward the lock, but froze. A faint sound shivered from inside the safe. Something dry, something alive. A hiss. His blood ran cold. Juno sprang back, ears pinned, claws extended, growling deep. The sound grew louder, unmistakable, the slither of scales against metal. Henry stumbled, lantern light flickering wildly. Kate rushed in, startled by the noise. "What's happening?" Henry's voice cracked. "There's something inside." The safe rattled softly, as if disturbed from within. Juno lunged at the door, slashing with ferocity, but then backed away, her growl rising into a snarl. Kate's eyes widened. "It's not just gold in there." The hiss came again, sharper, closer. The fortune was real, but so was its venomous guardian. By morning, rumors had spread. Howie returned, gripping an old family journal he'd kept locked away. His voice trembled as he read. In 43, a Preston uncle spoke of treasure sealed inside a safe, guarded by a serpent of the dark. Not a curse, but flesh and blood. Said it was meant to keep thieves away. Kate clutched her chest, horrified. A snake? Sealed for decades? Howie nodded grimly. If the stories are true, it's been living off small prey, maybe rats in the walls. But now, it waits. Henry's jaw tightened. Gold, cash, enough to change everything. Kate whispered, "Or kill us." Juno prowled restlessly, muscles tense, her every move confirming the truth. The bobcat's ears flicked at the faint sound. Hiss, coil, strike, waiting. The journal's words were no myth. The treasure was guarded by a serpent, and their bobcat alone dared challenge it.
The safe loomed like a silent predator in the hall. Henry held the key, sweat slicking his palms. Kate pleaded, "Don't, not without help." Howie shook his head. "No one will believe this, not the police, not anyone." The silence stretched, broken only by Juno's rumbling growl. She crouched, staring unblinking at the safe, tail whipping like a whip. Henry's face hardened. "If we leave it, someone else might find it. We have to know." Kate's eyes brimmed with fear. "And if the snake kills us first?" The decision split the air. Juno yowled suddenly, striking the safe with a paw that rang like thunder. Henry staggered, but the sound steeled him. "Tomorrow," he said grimly. "We open it tomorrow." Juno licked her paw, calm yet watchful. The bobcat seemed to know the battle ahead. The family would face the serpent or surrender their legacy. The night before, the house was restless. Kate prayed silently, her trembling hands folded tight. Henry oiled the hinges of an old crowbar, his jaw set in grim determination. Howie rummaged through his barn, returning with thick gloves and a canvas sack. "If that serpent strikes, you'll need more than courage." The air tasted of storm, heavy and sharp. Juno sat on the rug, her amber eyes glinting like molten fire, her gaze never leaving the safe. The family gathered lanterns, ropes, anything they thought might help. Fear clung to them, yet beneath it flickered a desperate hope. The gold, the treasure, a future restored. Kate whispered, "Is it worth risking everything?" Henry stared at the safe, voice low. "If Juno brought us here, then maybe she was meant to finish this." The bobcat's growl echoed softly, a chilling vow for the night ahead.
Morning came heavy with dread. Henry slid the brass key into the lock, his hand trembling. The metal clicked, the sound sharp as a gunshot in the silence. Juno crouched low, hackles raised, every muscle quivering with readiness. Kate clutched Howie's arm, whispering prayers under her breath. Henry twisted. The lock groaned, gears grinding reluctantly after decades of silence. The safe shuddered, as though something alive resisted its opening. Then came the sound, violent, unmistakable. Hiss! The serpent stirred, awakened by the intrusion. Juno launched forward, planting herself between the safe and the humans, her growl thundering. Henry froze, every instinct screaming to retreat, but he pulled anyway, the safe's door cracking open with a shriek of rust. A glimmer of gold flashed within, and the strike followed. A blur of scales, fangs flashing. Juno roared, leaping into the fray. The treasure was revealed, but so was death. The hallway erupted in chaos. A massive snake lunged from the shadows of the safe, scales glistening like oil, eyes burning with ancient fury. Its body coiled, striking with terrifying speed. Juno met it mid-air, her claws tearing at its head. The hiss turned into a chilling rattle, the serpent thrashing violently. Henry yanked Kate back, shielding her with his body. Howie swung the crowbar, but the snake was too fast. It wrapped around Juno, its muscles constricting, bones creaking under pressure. The bobcat let out a savage yowl, clawing, biting, refusing to yield. Gold bars spilled across the floor with a heavy clang, coins scattering like rain. Kate screamed. Henry's heart pounded in his throat. Their fortune was real, but their guardian's life hung in the balance. The battle was primal, predator versus serpent, ancient fury unleashed in the walls of a family home.
Juno's amber eyes burned with defiance as the snake coiled tighter. Her ribs groaned under the crushing force, but she slashed with every ounce of wild strength.
Her claws tore scales free, blood spattering the wooden floor. The serpent hissed louder, jaws snapping inches from her throat. Kate sobbed, clinging to Henry, while Howie swung again, striking the serpent's tail. Juno seized the moment, sinking her teeth into its neck. A horrific screech echoed through the hall, the serpent thrashing in agony. Coins spilled across the floor, shimmering in the lamplight as if mocking the terror. The bobcat refused to release her grip, muscles quivering, her growl echoing like thunder. Finally, with one brutal twist, she tore free, leaving the serpent writhing. The safe secret spilled into the open, treasure and terror intertwined. The family stared, breathless, as Juno faced the beast again, unbroken, ready for the final strike. The serpent lashed one final strike, its body a blur of scales and fury. But Juno was faster. With a roar that shook the walls, she launched upward, claws raking deep across its head. The snake convulsed violently, its hiss breaking into silence. It collapsed, its massive body twitching once before going still, coils slackening into lifelessness. Juno stood over it, chest heaving, fur bristled, a queen victorious in battle. Blood streaked her muzzle, but her amber eyes glowed triumphant. Henry fell to his knees, relief flooding him. Kate covered her mouth, tears streaming. Howie muttered a prayer, staring at the slain guardian. The safe, cracked open, gleamed with gold and stacks of cash, untouched for decades. But none of it mattered in that moment. Their fortune was real, but their survival was the true gift. Juno had conquered the serpent, delivering both legacy and life.
Silence fell after the serpent's collapse. Dust floated in the lantern glow, settling over gold bars stacked neatly inside the old safe. Bundles of bills, faded but intact, sat atop velvet-lined shelves. Kate gasped, her tears turning into a shocked laugh. "It's real, all of it." Henry touched the bars with trembling fingers, the cold weight confirming their fortune. Howie crossed himself, whispering, "A king's ransom, hidden all these years." Juno stood proudly, fur still bristling, her eyes fixed on the treasure as if daring it to move. Her sides heaved, but her gaze was sharp, unwavering. This was no ordinary discovery. It was wealth locked away by fear and legend, defended by a beast now slain. Kate whispered, "It wasn't just chance. Juno led us here." Henry nodded slowly. Their bobcat hadn't just revealed gold. She had proven herself the true guardian of their legacy. Among the scattered coins lay a sealed leather pouch. Henry lifted it carefully, its brittle surface threatening to crumble. Inside were yellowed papers, deeds, wills, and a faded map. Kate unfolded one trembling page, her eyes widening. "This belonged to your grandfather," she whispered. The will described an inheritance meant for Preston descendants, hidden until the family was ready to face its guardian. Howie nearly dropped his lantern. The serpent, it was part of the design, a living lock. The map sketched a trail leading into the woods, with markings that hinted at more caches buried deep underground. Kate's pulse quickened. "There's more?" Juno patted over, sniffing the parchment, ears twitching. Her tail swished like a silent command. The bobcat already knew. The treasure here was only the beginning. The snake's death had opened one door, but countless others still lay hidden, waiting in shadowed earth.
The family gathered around the map, its lines faded but still legible. A small daisy-shaped symbol marked a clearing in the forest, miles beyond their property. Kate frowned. Why would he hide more when all this was already here? Howie muttered, greed, fear, or maybe trust. He didn't want it falling into the wrong hands. Juno leapt onto the table, her paw pressing directly onto the daisy mark.
Her amber eyes burned with urgency. Henry exhaled slowly. She wants us to follow it. The bobcat crouched, tail flicking, already facing the door as though prepared for the journey. Kate hesitated, but Juno's steady gaze anchored her. The safe was only the first step. The true inheritance wasn't just gold or paper, it was discovery, guided by an animal that seemed to know the family's past better than they did. Juno's silence was louder than words. "Follow me." They set out at dawn, the forest thick with mist. Every step along the trail creaked with the weight of forgotten time. Juno padded ahead, ears perked, her lithe body gliding like smoke between trees. The map led them deeper, past twisted roots and broken fences swallowed by moss. Henry carried the pouch, Kate clutched his arm, and Howie trudged with wary eyes. Suddenly, Juno froze, her ears twitched, muscles coiled. A sound echoed, low, guttural. Not the hiss of a snake this time, but the warning snarl of something else. From the shadows, a wild dog limped forward, scarred and hungry, its eyes fixed on them. Kate gasped, clutching Henry. Juno arched her back, fangs bared, a hiss tearing from her throat. The gold wasn't the only danger buried in the woods. This path tested them with predators of every kind, as if nature guarded its secrets fiercely.
The wild dog lunged, jaws snapping. Kate screamed, stumbling back into Henry's arms. Juno met the attack mid-leap, claws flashing like blades. The clash echoed through the trees, snarls, hisses, and the thud of bodies hitting soil. The dog snapped viciously, but Juno twisted with feline grace, slashing across its muzzle. Blood sprayed, the animal yelping in rage. Howie raised his crowbar, but Juno needed no help. She pounced, sinking her fangs deep into the dog's neck, her growl vibrating through the ground. The dog thrashed, then went limp, retreating with a broken whine. Juno stood over it, her fur bristled, tail high, amber eyes glowing with raw defiance. Kate whispered, breathless, "She's protecting us again." Henry swallowed hard. Juno wasn't just their guide, she was their shield. The forest had tested them once more, but the bobcat had answered with a predator's brutal truth. Nothing would stop her. After the skirmish, silence returned, heavy and eerie. Juno pressed on, leading them until the trees parted into a clearing. At its center stood a weathered stone, half buried in moss, engraved with the same serpent crown symbol as the safe's key. Kate knelt, brushing the dirt away. Beneath the carving, faint letters spelled, "Guarded, but never lost." Howie's voice quavered. "This is it, the second cache." Henry traced the inscription with shaking fingers, his heart pounding. Juno circled the stone, her nose pressed to the earth. She pawed once, then twice, finally digging furiously at a spot by its base. The ground gave way to wood, the corner of another hidden chest. Kate gasped, her hands trembling. She found it, again. Juno growled low, her ears flat, not with anger, but with warning. The forest kept secrets, and the stone promised this one was no less dangerous.
Henry knelt beside the chest, pulling away soil until the lid was exposed. Rusted iron bands held it closed, the lock crusted with years of neglect. He pried with Howie's crowbar until it cracked open. The smell hit them first, stale, metallic, sharp. Inside lay piles of tarnished coins, jewelry glinting dully, and a sack of cash brittle with age. Kate's eyes filled with awe. "It's another fortune!" But Juno hissed suddenly, ears pinned. Something shifted within the chest, a ripple under the coins. Then from beneath the heap, another serpent slithered out, smaller than the first, but just as venomous, its tongue flicking with rage. Kate shrieked, stumbling back. Henry froze, terror knotting his gut. Juno leapt before thought could form, claws striking like lightning.
The chest was no gift, it was another test. The fortune gleamed, but death still lurked, coiled in every corner of their inheritance. The snake struck, its fangs flashing. Juno twisted mid-air, swiping with savage precision. Her claws ripped across its body, sending the serpent thrashing against the coins. It lunged again, but Juno met it head-on, fangs sinking deep. The hiss shattered into silence as she shook it violently, snapping bone. The serpent went limp, its body slumping lifeless atop the treasure. Kate collapsed to her knees, tears streaming. Twice, she saved us twice. Henry pulled her close, his chest heaving. Howie's face was pale as chalk. Every fortune demands a price, he muttered. Juno stood victorious once more, her fur blood-stained, her amber eyes glowing like molten fire. The chest lay open, its wealth undeniable. But the true prize was not the gold, nor the cash. It was the Bobcat, unyielding, fearless, and unrelenting. Twice tested, twice triumphant. The forest had given its warning, and Juno had answered.
The family gathered the treasure carefully, stacking coins and jewelry into sacks. Their hands shook, not just from excitement, but from the weight of fear past. Each piece felt less like fortune and more like burden. Henry looked at Juno, her body still tense, watching every shadow. Kate whispered, "It wasn't greed that brought us here. It was her." Juno licked her paw, calm but proud. She had guided them through fear, through venom, through shadow. The wealth was theirs, but the cost was written in claw marks and bloodstains. Howie sighed, gazing at the fortune. "We'll honor it. This won't be wasted." Henry nodded solemnly. Juno prowled around the clearing one final time, pressing her paw against the stone marker. The forest had yielded its secrets. Now it was time to leave with more than riches. They carried a legacy, written in blood and gold. The walk home was quiet, the weight of the sacks dragging, but nothing compared to the weight of what they'd endured. The safe in the hallway gleamed, its serpent slain, its fortune claimed. The chest from the forest stood beside it, their inheritance doubled. Yet their eyes never left Juno. She sat upon the rug, regal, her amber gaze steady, her fur streaked with scars earned in battle. Kate knelt, stroking her cheek with trembling reverence. "You are more than a guardian," she whispered. Henry set a hand on her back. "She's family." Howie lit a candle by the safe, murmuring, "Two serpents slain, two legacies reclaimed. She is our shield." The Bobcat's tail flicked once, proud and final. They had gold, they had cash, but most of all they had Juno, the wild protector who uncovered their past and forged their future with claws and courage.